conferences. We run conferences in our facilities for companies that want to do their own training programs, but we also ask companies to help sponsor conferences that we put on. So as an example, every year we do a student conference on emerging markets, where we'll have corporate speakers coming from all around the world talking about their experiences and how they're developing their businesses in emerging markets. It's a wonderful way for us to connect with senior leaders at these companies. It's a wonderful way for them to get to know our students and to get to understand the school and our approach to education. We do try to work closely with companies on research projects. Typically, in our case, these are companies that have lots of data. Our faculty tend to be very data-driven. They like to kind of crunch numbers, get a whole data set, put it in their computer, and see how many ways they can tweak it and twist it and turn it around. So, as an example, many years ago, we had a wonderful connection with AC Nielsen, the kind of the rating and consumer panel data company, and we've developed a number of research papers that have come out of access to that data. More and more of our faculty now are working with companies on some of their human resource data to kind of get a sense of some of the human resources practices and how does that affect promotions and perceptions of employees. So the access to data. Companies often want to have cases written about them. Our faculty tend not to write cases, but for those schools that do a lot of case writing, companies often like to have their story told. And so if you can get in the door to write a case about something interesting going on at that company, it's another great way to make those connections. We at Chicago Booth, about 40 years ago, started a program we call Management Laboratories. It's basically taking groups of students working directly for companies on a particular project. We'll do projects related to new product launch. We'll do projects related to developing a new strategy. We'll do projects related to organizational redesign. So I'll have a team of students working with a faculty member with a company for about 6 months for credit. So it's a class. They get credit for it toward their MBA. It's a great way for our students to learn more about companies and put into practice some of the things they're learning in the classroom, but it's also a great way for the companies to get some experience with our students, to see how good they are, hopefully at some point hire them. So again, builds those connections. As I mentioned earlier, there is a little bit of consulting that happens. We actually do probably more consulting from our student consulting clubs with companies than our faculty do, but that's something else we do. And then one of the easiest things you can do to create corporate connections is invite senior leaders to sit on your advisory boards. Get their advice. Hear what they have to say about the state of education, what they're looking for, what their company is going to be going through over the next 5 to 10 years, and how you can help prepare graduates to meet those demands and those needs. So getting people on your advisory boards, listening to what they say, and taking advantage of what they say. So not simply having to go one ear out the other, but actually taking action based on some of the things they suggest. The other thing we typically try to do is facilitate our faculty and senior staff sitting on corporate boards. We also help our alumni actually sit on corporate boards. Many organizations, particularly new entrepreneurial organizations, are looking for good advice from faculty members. So we have many alumni entrepreneurs who've been out, have a great business idea, trying to get some advice, and they will invite our faculty to sit on their boards. One of the greatest examples of that for us was many years ago. David Booth started a firm called Dimensional Fund Advisors. And he wanted some expertise from some of our faculty members, and so he invited Gene Fama to sit on his advisory board. Lo and behold, by 2008, his firm had become so successful that he decided to make a very nice donation to the University of Chicago, what was then the Graduate School of Business, and in recognition of that very nice gift, we've renamed the school to the Booth School of Business. So that is a very concrete example of how a board position of one of our faculty members led to some tremendous financial results for us. So again, many companies, particularly young ones, are looking for opportunities to get advice from your faculty. So facilitating that, letting faculty have the time, encouraging faculty to do that, helping them understand what the benefit is to them and to the school is incredibly important. And then finally, our alumni are all over the world. I'm sure yours are well spread as well. Leveraging those alumni to understand what's going on in those companies, making sure that your alumni are spreading the word about your school within those companies is incredibly important. Every time I go talk to our alumni groups, I say, make sure you've got the baseball hat, you've got the t-shirt, you've got the coffee mug, and make sure your colleagues at your company know that you went to Chicago booth. So just in closing, very, very briefly, where do you go from here? Thinking about these corporate relationships and building a tremendous school. Hire the best faculty that you can. Create compelling academic programs. Build those strong corporate connections, which will help you attract great students, which will then become great alumni. If you can leverage those alumni, it will help you indeed continue to hire the best faculty, create new compelling academic programs, continue to build new strong corporate relationships. You begin to build this circle, this virtuous cycle that allows you to continue to improve, continue to get better and better each and every day. So again, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here today. I wish you the best of luck for the rest of the afternoon. I hope that some of my remarks and comments have helped foster a little bit of thinking that you can take with you to continue to improve your own institutions and generate some new ideas for new opportunities here in India. Thank you very much.
Good morning to all of you. So first of all, let me congratulate EPSI and NHRD Network for setting up this conference, and particularly for this particular session focused on building world-class academic standards. Recently in an interview, the Minister for Human Resource Development, Mr. Javadekar, was asked about his priorities, and he had an interesting answer. He said quality, quality and quality. So I think it's very apt that in this session, reflecting the national emphasis on improving quality, we are going to debate this whole issue of how to build world-class academic standards. I'm also very enthused that we have three very eminent panelists with us who are all making their own efforts and initiatives in this direction, and they will be able to share their insights with us. So I'm going to take the prerogative as the chair of just setting the tone by talking a little bit about the issues as I see them, and of course also telling you a little bit about my own institution, and then I will go on to requesting the other panelists to also participate in the discussion. Each one of them will be contributing for about 10 minutes. So what we are planning to do is spend about 40 minutes in all between the four of us, and then open up the floor for any questions or discussion. So let me just start by sharing a little bit about what we have been doing at IIM Indore, and also set the context for the rest of the panel. So broadly, if you look at the business school landscape in India, I think it's somewhat unfair to say that business schools have not been doing well. In fact, if we look at some of the data that's available, we can see that in terms of rankings, we have Indian business schools among the top business schools in the world as per FT rankings. Whereas actually in the university context, perhaps we are not doing as well, but at least in the business school context, we are at least up there in the top 25 in Masters in Management and in the top 60 in global MBA programs. If you look at accreditation again, if you look at the top accreditation bodies in the world like AACSB and ICWIS, we have institutions represented there as well. We have one school, Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, which has got a very prestigious triple accreditation, which only about 100 business schools globally have. And if we look at the alumni pool of our management institutions, going back over the last 50, 60 years, we've seen very accomplished business people, executives, thought leaders, and even people who have been described in the popular press as rock stars, though not in rock music, but in their respective domains. So I think we can legitimately claim that business education in India has done quite well. I think we're also doing reasonably well in other spheres, but business education is the one I know best about. So let me speak about that. Okay, but if you look at receiving international recognition, the story might be quite slightly different, and perhaps that's where the main challenge lies. So let me talk a little bit about what we are doing at IIM Indore. I think first thing I would like to emphasize is the importance of having the right mission statement. So if you look at the mission statement which we formulated a few years ago in 2014, you will see three important phrases there right at the top. The first is that we are trying to be contextually relevant. So we are a business school operating in India. So we want to be focused on the needs of the Indian environment. We also want to be focused on world-class academic standards. So we don't intend to make any compromise on standards in the quest for contextual relevance. And of course, given the broad challenges that the country faces, clearly we need to have socially conscious managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs. So if you look at our snapshot of our institute at this point of time, we are the largest IIM in terms of number of students. We are the only IIM that offers entry opportunities after Standard 12 through our 5-year integrated program. We have a diverse program portfolio. But the big challenge really is getting out out there among the top institutions in the world in terms of our reputation and perception. So one of the key issues definitely becomes faculty development and of course infrastructure. As you heard the speaker earlier from Chicago Booth School, these are a couple of the things which are very important to really drive the reputation of an institute. So we are doing several things to kind of get there at the moment, largely on the national level, but also internationally we are trying to be comparable in terms of things like gender diversity. Currently we are have the largest percentage of women among the IIMs at about 37%. So all of these are important initiatives towards creating the kind of world-class environment we want to do in the future. We also have realized that we have to make sure our graduates can hit the ground running as soon as they go into their jobs. So unlike maybe other parts of the world where skill development is not as important, in India developing skills is very critical. Because about 50% of our students don't have industry experience when they come into the program. So we need to help them develop skills, and particularly more modern and contemporary skills like design thinking, like entrepreneurial orientation, like sustainability, not only traditional skills like communication. And increasingly, of course, one of the challenges the country is facing is building more entrepreneurs. So clearly we want to contribute to that as well. So one modification we are starting in our MBA program from next year is we are offering an entrepreneurial track in the second year where 75% of the weightage is going to come from running an enterprise, not from just doing courses. So 75% of the credits in the second year will go to starting and running an enterprise, and students will be evaluated based on how they do that. That's because I think there's no point in talking about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is doing it. So unless you do it, you're not going to learn from that. So we have been, again, focused a lot, as I mentioned right at the outset, on faculty development. I think it's been underlined many times since this morning that developing faculty is one of the key steps towards building world-class academic standards. Making faculty development a priority means interacting very closely with faculty. A few things I have been trying to do to drive this process. One is involving very closely with faculty in developing their individual goals so that they have an agenda which combines their research and teaching, giving a lot of feedback to faculty on all dimensions of their performance. Of course, helping them with their research, collaboration, skill development, etc. And trying to make sure that our faculty get exposure to the international environment. So they get exposure to the best international business schools. For example, these are some of the business schools where our faculty members have had a chance to spend substantial amount of time in the last 2 years. So my goal is to make sure that every faculty member who has done his PhD in India gets exposure to working in a foreign business school, a leading one at that, for at least 6 to 8 weeks. So these are some of the institutions where we have tried to give them exposure through exchange programs and through sponsorship by the institute. We are, of course, doing a lot of other initiatives, including mentoring young faculty, supporting their international collaboration, supporting their skill upgradation. For example, if they want to go and learn a new research methodology, institute sponsors them to do that. So there are several faculty development initiatives which are going on at this point of time. One important aspect of this which we are emphasizing is the importance that faculty should be seeing themselves not just as teachers. Traditionally in India, faculty have tended to see their role primarily as a teaching role. We are trying to create a more all-round scholars role where teaching, research, outreach, all of these go together. And in this, of course, benchmarking against the best becomes important, continuous improvement, focusing on their areas of interest, managing their time well, all of these become extremely important for individual faculty. Let me conclude by just telling you some of the challenges, and I'm hoping that our panelists here will also focus on some of the challenges involved. I was quite influenced by this quote from Mr. Adi Godrej. the chairman of the Godrej Group, where he talks about how difficult it is to innovate in India because of some assumptions that are very strongly embedded in our organizations. So I think these are some of the barriers we really need to cross if we are going to build the kind of world-class institutions we want. Here I would just leave you with 4 questions. I'm not going to give you answers to these questions, but these are the questions which are going to be key to driving our institutions to the next level, in my view. The one is, do we really believe in meritocracy? Are our faculty and students and everyone else really willing to be driven by the fact that merit is what will drive incentives, will drive promotions, will drive who is really valued in the organization? And merit here is a multidimensional concept, covering research, teaching, outreach, all 3 of these. Are we willing to move away from what Sumantra Ghoshal so evocatively called satisfactory underperformance, which is linked to the next point? I think our people in India are extremely smart, so are our faculty. But that also sometimes means they can do well enough without really stretching themselves. Can we really challenge them to do this? And I was just discussing with Abhishek before the session. I think he's also going to throw some more light on this. So how do we build aspiration among our faculty, among our students, to really stretch and go to the next level? And how do we manage this whole balance between the individual skills, how we motivate them, and how we incentivize? Because incentives also sometimes get out of hand. So how do we make sure that all of these are aligned with each other? To my mind, these are some of the challenges which we face in moving towards this journey of getting or becoming world class. So thank you. Now let me sort of go on to the panelists. The first panelist we're going to have is Dr. Jawahar. PES has done an amazing job in a short span of time in creating excellent academic standards, multiple campuses. So we are really privileged that we have Dr. Jawahar with us here today to tell us about how does he use performance indicators, how does he use metrics to really drive the improvement and attaining world-class academic standards in PES institutions. Dr. Jawahar.
Thank you, Rishi. The session in the morning probably gave me more clarity in terms of the message that I need to convey in this session. Putting in context, we are popularly known for an engineering college that we run called as PES Institute of Technology, which was recently given the status of a university around 3 years back. In 1946, the first engineering college was established in Karnataka, that was BMS College of Engineering, which is the very well-known institution out here. 25 years later, 2 more reputed institutions that we know of in the city of Bangalore, MS Ramaiah Institute of Technology and RV College of Engineering, was given permission. And then we started 25 years later, 1988, we were given permission. And when we started our institution then, there were 56 engineering colleges in the state of Karnataka, and we were ranked number 54. So that's where the journey began. And then 25 years from then, in those days when I looked at the top 5 engineering colleges in the state of Karnataka, all 5 were government institutions. Not even a single one of them was a private school. 25 years from then, if you look at this data at 2013, 25 years later, all the top 5 institutions in Karnataka were private, and all of us were there still standing. So RV is there, PS is there, Ramaiah is there, BMS is there. So that's what is the status. And going forward, we have a small dream for ourselves as a university. We want to be ranked amongst the top 10 universities in the country by 2020, and one of the top 100 universities in the world by 2040. That's the target that we have for a whole set of programs that we're going to be running across various campuses. The journey started with identification of the key performance indicators that we would measure as an institution and as a group. The first was, we call it as the spirit of PES. S stands for students, so there's a focus on this. Everybody has talked about student quality. So we looked at how do we attract and retain better students to come into our institution year after year. Second thing is, how do we ensure that the quality of experience by all our students would enhance year after year. And the third thing that we looked at in students is, what do we do about our alumni? How do we have an interface with our alumni so that the student body is going to get the benefit of our alumni? Good thing for us is that in the last 25 years, most of our alumni are there in senior positions in various organizations. and it has helped us leverage their presence in their places. I'll talk about some innovativeness that we have done later, but let me cover these 6 first, and then I'll get to it in the 10 minutes that's been assigned to me. The next thing was the process. We are the first engineering college to be ISO 9002 certified, and then accredited by various bodies, and then we are looking at the ABET certification now and working towards it. So a well-defined process that is constantly looking at improving things. The third thing that we looked at is infrastructure. I mean, that was very incidental when we had the address in the morning. Classrooms, laboratories are all passé. I mean, centers for excellence is another thing that is there. If you look at the largest development building project that we are taking up right now, which is close to 1 million square feet that we are building in our central facility, the emphasis is on a rec center. I mean, we are creating a large rec center which is around 3 lakh square feet that is there, which is like a mini mall. The quality of expectations of life has changed. I mean, in sense, if you talk about things like eat, place, and drink, or we want to add study also in that particular place, and make sure that a good amount of studying is going to be taking place around these leisure activities. How do you create an ecosystem like that? The bank center of the campus is where we are locating all these facilities that are there, which are going to be truly world-class. You can go to an upmarket mall in the country, or you come to our campus, you will have a similar facility, and then you will say that reading is going to be happening in some place there. So we're trying to look at how this is going to be evolving. So yes, infrastructure of a different type is being created. Classes are going to be more interactive than ever before, and the kind of settings in which the classrooms are going to be designed are also going to be radically different from what we have seen in the past. Going down to the research areas that are there, general indicators of quality of research, R stands for research. We are talking about projects, we are talking about publications, we are talking about patents. So one of the areas that we are trying to look at is targeted research. The effort that we put in for the last 5 years actually has given us a big win in the recent past, in the sense that the domain that was there in satellite communications or satellite technologies, it's always the purview of a few IITs in this country, and we made a breakthrough out there because our satellite is up and running, and this is the first Indian nano satellite that's out there in the space. The kind of visibility that we got for that was very, very high. Though we did smaller projects, which was of the volume of maybe 30 to 50 lakhs from each one of these grants that we got, the win that we got out there got national recognition for us. And in the sense that I can see that transforming, because our applications for the entrance test this year has jumped up by 50%, just by one trigger that has happened in that particular